Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ethelor Plays Go. Today, we're going to be continuing with this uh, Road to Wundan series, and today we'll have a 20Q game. So I jumped from about 23Q to 20Q, and yeah, so I guess we just pick up where we can. So the game starts off pretty reasonably. Once again, you can see that Black is going for these high stones, and I guess that's as I mentioned, it's a bit of a feature in these games by beginners, and I think I'm kind of still continuing with this pattern. If you've been watching the videos up to now, then you'll know that I'll recommend to take the corners rather than playing the star points, because the idea is that these high moves, they don't really take territory or points, and it leaves places for your opponents to come in and invade. And part of the trick is that um, the beginners will treat all of this as territory when the definition of territory is that you can't really invade an area. And you'll notice like can't invade an area depends a little bit on the skill to be able to use weaknesses within that area to live, and the skill for your opponent to actually effectively attack you. So what counts as an area and what doesn't depends a little bit. That's why this game is interesting and why it just has infinite depth. But yeah, so that's the basic idea. So at the start, you don't really understand what's territory and what isn't, and so you have players and they'll play very high, and you should go in and invade and try things out. Here I do something that's very interesting. I play what's called a pincer, which is that to try and remove the eye space or the base from the shape, from the stone. If you play on both sides, then it means that black might have a harder time settling. Doesn't mean that they can't settle, but it is a little bit more tricky. And so black plays this diagonal. Maybe another response would be to play out here or to maybe play over here. I think attaching is also Joseki, but as it Joseki, I should define it very quickly. That means a position that creates even results for both players. So these are not mistake moves. Joseki as well in Japan uh, also means like the stuff that you do every day. So if you imagine you get up and you make coffee and you sit at your computer or you go to work, that all of that is Joseki basically. So just common patterns. So the easiest thing is just to jump out to the center. Black will be fine, or well, for the time being, because so long as you're in the center, then it's more challenging to surround you. Not that it won't happen eventually. As the board gets full, it will eventually happen, but yeah, so we see that that's what's one thing you can do. So here, black doesn't do that, which is also fine. This diagonal is actually a way you can play, which is interesting. And yeah, white extends, which is good. And then black plays over here. I'd say that perhaps this is a little bit slow. White can try and surround black with these kinds of moves now. So if earlier, like the reason why surrounding is so important is because connection and disconnection is fundamental to Go. And if you're surrounded, then by definition, you are disconnected from the rest of the board. So you want to prevent that by jumping out to the center. White doesn't quite manage to call black on the move. Not that black's in big trouble anyway, but the big issue is that here the connection between the stones is a little bit weak, and so black can just tear through. And so yeah, black gets out and white is disconnected from themselves. So the advantage is that if you play a move like this, then not that black can't get out. So you can imagine black maybe plays, well, he can't come out this way, so he'll just come here, and then white can surround. And then white needs to maybe worry that maybe the shape here gets a little bit too thin, but don't worry about that too much. The idea is just this shape here doesn't have the best connection, so black can come in between. Black doesn't do that. So black makes this kick and then does play it, which is good. And then here, white, I think I talked about this in previous games, or at least in my Zengo game. Here, this is basically called pre-peeping the shape. So if black tries to come between, then well, basically white can become a little bit thin. And what thin means is that white may not be able to keep all the stones connected. So white needs to be prepared for that. So instead of playing a shape like this, you can imagine playing over here or this way, so that if black does try to cut, then you can just capture it in a ladder like this. And then you can capture either which way. So this is the idea. I mean, here white still won't be connected, but that's too late after playing the awkward shape earlier. So, okay, black is kind of pressing on white. White has a weakness right here. If black cuts, then this stone is dead. So white will have to come this way, and this isn't great. So white is kind of leaving a little bit of weakness behind. So if black cuts and white takes, that means that this group over here is fine, but then black also can take this. The result might not be so bad, but yeah, so the thing is that you want to play the most urgent thing on the board, or the biggest thing on the board. And this one stone is not important enough strategically for black to save. And so they don't. But instead, black plays here, and it's actually quite interesting. You'll see this a lot in beginners' games, where you have this ko shape that appears. And this kind of happens because there are a lot of Ataris, and black will respond right away, and then eventually the players will realize that they don't have to connect like this, that they can bulge out, and then it happens many times. So yeah, you get this ko shape, but this ko isn't actually worth very much. Imagine if white takes and connects, then what has white really gained? And then black gets 2 moves elsewhere. So this ko isn't really that important. So, I mean, you wouldn't really want to play the ko, you'd rather defend the cut anyway, but yeah, so then the game continues. Let's see, I need to find the right branch. And here, yeah, so here we're playing the ko as if it actually means something, and yeah, what happens if white doesn't play the ko? So then let's say that, yeah, white doesn't respond to it. Maybe black can cut through here and try something like this, but then there's this. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm getting a bit lost in the details here. I think that's also what happens with beginner games, is that they get very focused on one area, and then like stronger players will say like, oh no, don't respond there, don't respond there, and then eventually have to say like locally instead of globally, as in to say, I'll ignore the rest of the board and just focus on what's there at the second. So okay, yeah, black's shape is perhaps a bit dense here. You can see that they're like clumped together. So this shape here is called a dango. So if I remove these ones here, if you have these, it's a dango, so like dumplings in Japanese. So basically, like, black has all those stones clumped together, and white is all on the outside and facing towards the center, which is great. The big issue for white is all of these cut points here, and if you've been watching the series up until now, you'll know that, you can try and combine these cut points together to try and make something big. So you can say, like, oh, here, 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 and then here there's a double Atari. So yeah, that's basically the issue, that as there are more cut points, it becomes more difficult to deal with. In terms of like, yeah, let's just say for now that the ko isn't worth much. And then, I mean, white can make a little bit better shape this way. But eventually, if we just fast forward a little bit, black fills, and this filling of their own liberty ends up killing them. So white ends up capturing this group. Thank goodness. It was a bit messy to try and analyze that whole position. But yeah, so once this has been captured, white is strong because all those stones are connected, and black gets to play a move elsewhere. Normally, beginners will try and save these stones here, and that's not great because these stones aren't, like, individual stones are worth only 1 point. And if you can imagine that, like, maybe a player will make 60 to 80 points or 100 points, depending on the game, you can imagine that like 1/60th, 1/80th, 1/100th of the total points that you'll make, it's not that big. So you would also like to compare, like, say, what's the value of saving this stone versus playing over here. So like, imagine if you play here and white plays here, like white gets to make this big area and come in on black, or black can do the opposite. That's much bigger than saving just 1 stone. You make literally like already, like, it's not really territory, but you already make like 15 points here. And then likewise, if white plays instead, that's maybe another 15 points, so that's like 30 points. Obviously, it doesn't work like that because it's not territory, but, that's already way, way bigger than this 1 stone. So, okay, black saves it. And then, let's see. So I'm white, it's just worth remembering. white needs to be a little bit careful because this group doesn't have a base, and so white will need to run. So you can imagine, like, I don't know, something like this, but just something to keep in mind. And here, this move isn't very usual. Normally, you'd pincer this way. Basically, here, like the normal things that you'll be suggested to do is to go into the corner here. Then you can very easily try and make some kind of position here, which is no big deal, or you can come this way instead. So either way that you go, you'll end up fine. The issue though is that, I mean, here, because white captured this huge group, this is going to be okay, because the normal concern is that you don't want to give too much influence, because that can end up being quite difficult to play against, and then you'll give a lot of points to your opponent. But on this board, it's fine. Another option, I think, like what I played in the game, like this is okay. Maybe even playing just a little bit closer so that there are fewer problems. I think, like, when you play these big moves, you need to think about what happens if black comes in between. And so it takes a little bit more reading. And so just beware when you play these large shaped moves how your connection looks. I think, like, one exercise that I did was, like, imagine you have a shape like this on the side, you know, how far can you play before black disconnects you? I think that was a really good exercise I did when I was a beginner. So yeah, black plays here, and you'd rather come out in this direction, because if white comes here, then I mean, white isn't fully surrounded, it's still okay, but this way black can't make any territory, and you're still looking at this issue over here. And in fact, this issue is so big that, you know, it's also valid to maybe come in this direction as well. So let's see. So white comes into the corner here and lives. These moves you'll see a lot at beginner stages as well, this descent to the first line. The issue with this is that, once again, you need to think about the value of this move. In the same way how this stone wasn't that big, imagine if you play a move here. Is this bigger than capturing? You know, this is a difference of like 5 points maybe, you know, roughly. You know, which is bigger? You know, the first move in the corner here before, that was worth like 30 points. So imagine this is the same value. You know, that's obviously way bigger. So yeah, that's coming down here. And also the issue as well is that if you descend this way, then you leave this peep. And depending on, like, this isn't a problem in every game. Like here, it's not a problem. But in some games, this peep can be quite annoying. So basically, if you wanted to respond, which you shouldn't right now, just connecting solidly is fine. So, okay, and then white plays away. And once again, playing these really high moves leaves these invasion points behind. So that's why it's important to just take your territory and just take it slowly. And if you can, alternating these third and fourth line stones like here, because that tends to make a more efficient, stronger formation. The way how people compare it is like saying that it's like cardboard. You want it to be a ruffled structure. So, okay, black is pressing on white, and here, the shape is also just a little bit thin, so over here. The issue is, for instance, like, oh, if you come this way, you know, you can play Ataris, and then this corner now is captured for black. And then, I mean, also if black comes this way, you know, I guess it's not so bad. I mean, I guess there's also, you know, cuts, and yeah, so this move is normally, like, if you can play a tiger's mouth, this shape here is a tiger's mouth, it's usually a vital point. But I guess you still leave this issue behind here. So if nothing else, like, black comes in this direction, so, like, just respond. Don't be complicated. Just respond to them. Obviously, you can't always respond 100% all the time. That's called puppy dog go, when you follow your opponent around the board. And that's also a typical beginner thing, but yeah, this shape here is just a bit too loose, and then black isn't doing anything about it. And once again, like, these stones aren't worth a lot strategically, so you don't care about losing them. What you care about is so for instance, can I have some cutting stones? If you imagine the state of the board before, so like imagine black cuts here, you know, this stone is important because it's separating. Connection and separation being the fundamental thing in Go. It's separating two groups. That means it's doing work. That means we want to save it. It has strategic value. But if it's not doing that, then it's just worth 1 point. And so this is where the context of the game becomes really important. Knowing what the stones are doing, what it's separating, what it's keeping together, if it's creating life for your group, that kind of thing. So here, for instance, this is called keeping black behind enemy lines. You can imagine that these two groups are connected, and black is behind, and so you want to keep black behind. The issue is that black can just, this, as we discussed, this shape here is not the tightest, so black can just come in between here. And here, so here, for instance, you want to fix your shape and keep black surrounded. I say you, but it's really me many years ago. And here, so like this is an interesting idea. And to be fair, like if you come here, now black needs to make two eyes in the center. And that's normally a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky because you need to now, normally you can make just about one eye in the center. And then making that second one is always way more difficult than making the first one. But you have to know, like, oh, okay, I'm going to peep here and now cap this, and now black needs to figure out where to go. And then even if they can get one eye, they need to think about how they get their second eye too. But, maybe if you're a beginner, you don't quite know this, so I think it's okay. Let black connect and take the rest of the board. Obviously, I say take the rest of the board. There are invasions, and you need to evaluate what's big enough for you to do that. And I guess when you're a beginner, it's difficult to evaluate all this. But, you'll make mistakes and you'll learn, and that's basically how you learn the game. So up to here, I would say for white to just, here this is a bit, just a bit thin, so maybe coming one more time and then blocking here. But, I guess this is okay too. This wasn't great. If I think if white descends here, then black needs to think about, like, first of all, you need like 7 or 8 stones on the first line in order to live, and this is just 5, so this is okay. So white doesn't have time to come this way, and they need to play something like this, and maybe like here. And if they're really, really brave, they might play something like this. The issue is that this is not 2 eyes, but maybe black can get enough on the outside. So this is a way you can play if you're a bit ballsy, a little bit brave. The issue with this shape is a typical mistake, is that if you play here, then you can make a ko. So you need to be careful. Be careful of the cutting points that you leave behind, and have plans for what happens. So normally white should just extend, and this will be a common result. So here you might have opponents who just connect right away. And this is technically better than the other variation, but you need to consider this ko variation as well. So just be careful about that. So let's see. Here, okay, black is making the connection, no problem. Forget this. This is way bigger. You're finishing the center here. Whereas here, white can just ignore. And okay, fine, you can maybe play like this. This actually still captures. And white can still get into the center, so I guess that's okay. Black shouldn't respond, though. They should just play over here. And this way, white can't get into the center. But, yeah, okay, so black manages to seal it off, which is great. And we have a little bit of endgame. We skip endgame a little bit, because it's not... Endgame is usually not... interestingly, not like... I guess in chess, endgame is a little bit more important than in Go it's important, but it's all about calculation by this point. Like for most amateurs, most of the time somebody's gonna just die, so one player is usually going to be way ahead. And then, to be fair, points can swing. Like I had a game against a Don player that I lost because I counted that I was ahead, and then I didn't put enough pressure, and then I lost like 30 points because I wasn't paying attention to the game, and then I lost. So yeah, you can lose a lot in endgame, but your opponent has to kind of know what they're doing a little bit. And usually like here, okay, yeah, like and then while you're making these mistakes, like don't self-Atari yourself playing on the 1-1 like that and getting instantly captured. That's very typical. So okay, We play this Ko for half a point, and then white wins by 85 points. So white was huge in the center, but also white lost this group over here, which is really, really, really painful. Meanwhile, black just kind of like focused on their own area, and it didn't quite, it wasn't quite enough. So they needed to invade earlier, but also, yeah, here, like, or like punish on this thin shape or something, or like come into this corner. But black, I mean, I guess black did come into the corner here, but it was a bit too late. Yeah, that's basically the game. I think there are a lot of like interesting concepts for beginners to understand by looking at this game. So I'll keep reviewing these games and we'll be getting progressively stronger. And I hope that some of you learn a lot from this because I'm sure that like this is that you'll learn a lot of fundamental concepts and you'll just start rinsing your opponents. So yeah, if you joined this video, then like, comment, and subscribe. Uh, Email me your games if you want to get them reviewed. I'll review them on camera, and yeah, and you'll get yeah, free thoughts. So yeah, let me know, and like, comment, subscribe, whatever, and I'll see you in the next video.